From what you had on Friday?
Go ahead and push play.
It's even the same order of stuff.
Oh, maybe.
I mean, these minutes were further down.
It's a countdown, yep.
Okay. All right. I'm not paying attention.
It's a good thing. I need to reload, because mine was still.
Same one.
So I just reloaded. Now I see what you're saying.
Mako staff makes it so easy. How'd you guess? Ready, gentlemen? Call this meeting of County Commissioners to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
Under God, indivisible.
liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing as we observe a moment of silence in memory of those who lost their lives in California due to the mudslides. Thank you. We have three sets of minutes, regular, liquor, and closed session minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Probably move in second. The aforementioned minutes be approved as submitted. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried unanimously. In closed session, the commissioners and Ms. Heller discussed the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction, or any other personnel matter that affects or one or more specific individuals in accordance with the general provision article, section paragraph 3-305, subparagraph B1 of the annotated Code of Maryland. The reason for closing was to consider requests for compensation that affects one or more specific individuals from the closed session on January 9th. We have a raffle permit for a raffle only from the Kent County Community Marching Band, and it's going to be held throughout the county from April 1st through August 20th with the raffle drawing, July 20th, with the drawing being held on July 20th.
Motion to approve?
Second?
Properly moved and second, the aforementioned application be approved. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion is carried unanimously. We have a special Class C license application for beer, wine, and liquor from the Community Fire Company of Millington. It's for a wedding anniversary party and hall rental at the Millington Fire Company in Millington to be held on January 19th of this year. This is an application for a liquor license, which requires a public hearing. Does anyone have any comments for or against the aforementioned application? Hearing none.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and second, the aforementioned application be approved as submitted. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried unanimously. Honorable Harris Murphy. The Honorable.
Which hot seat you want me in?
The one that has the wires coming down.
I'm encouraged to see the level of public interest in the staffing concerns of the Circuit Court for Kent County. Thank you all for putting me on the agenda tonight and for considering this request. I'm not going to go through the entire letter, but if you have any questions about what I put in the letter, I would certainly answer them. Essentially, the request is twofold. I've been on the job now for almost 4 months. One of the first things I found out when I took the job is that we're the only circuit court in the state that doesn't have a circuit court administrator. The way that I found that out is I was asked almost immediately upon assuming the position by the chief judge or by the county administrative, circuit administrative judge, and by the administrative office of courts if I would begin the process of trying to fill this position that they've been sort of suggesting over the last 8 years be filled. I did some research and confirmed that we are in fact the only county without one. Several of the counties, most of the counties have a county funded position for the circuit court administrator. There are a couple, Dorchester, Garrett, and Somerset, that have a grandfathered in state funded position for the entire circuit, but all of the other counties have a county funded position. And in the smaller counties, particularly those in the Second Judicial Circuit, Talbot, Caroline, Queen Anne's, the circuit court administrator position was combined with the administrative assistant judicial secretary position, and they fill both of those roles. And that is what I'm asking the commissioners here to approve, is combining the existing administrative assistant position and reclassifying it as, I think the county position is office manager, which is essentially what the circuit court administrator does, in addition to the secretarial duties that person traditionally fills. The reason that I'm asking for it now, and my initial plan was to ask for it during the normal budgeting process, but as you all may know, Ms. Allman, Kay Allman, is retiring at the end of February after 45 years of service with the county, and it didn't make sense to fill that position and then come back again in the budgeting process and ask for it again and have to rehire. So I thought it made sense, although it wasn't my initial plan, to ask for it now, if you all would consider doing it at this point in time.
So you want to advertise with the new specs and just bring a new person on board that's got the qualifications to meet all that?
Correct. And if you want me to tell you what, the one thing I'll bring up, and then if you have any specific questions, I'll answer them. But the thing that I think points out the need for this is, one of the things that this person would do is communicate with and fulfill all of the reporting and administrative requirements from the Administrative Office of Courts, which oversee all the court operations in the state. According to Mark Mumford, the court clerk, he tells me that when he started in 2005, the administrative office of the courts had 50 employees. Now they have 400. And as most of them, I guess, or some of them attempt to justify their existence, that agency being 7 times larger, the requirements that come downhill from them are 7 or more times larger. One of the first things that was put on my desk when I started was this, which is the differentiated case flow management that the Administrative Office of the Courts requires all the circuit courts to have. Ours hasn't been updated in some 15 years, and they are asking us to do this. I started, but I don't have the time to do that in addition to everything else. So that's one of the things that this person would do, is oversee the case flow management systems, do all the reporting to the Administrative Office of the Courts, hopefully be more well-versed in preparing grant funding requests to try and get some of the additional funding from the state rather than asking you all to do it. I gave a long litany, again, of what this position would entail in the letter. I think for simplicity's sake, it's really an office management position. They would oversee all of this. They would help to oversee the staff and help with the administrative duties that fall on. As the only judge in the county, I'm also the county administrative judge, so the sitting on the bench part has proven to be only about half of the job, and I think that the need exists to have an additional, executive managerial position within the office to deal with some of those tasks. So if you have any questions about that.
I'll make a motion to approve that position.
Second.
Probably move a second to reclassify, let's see, the administrative assistant position to that of the circuit court administrator.
Yes, sir.
Effective,
I guess it would be March 1st.
okay, effective,
Well, the classification has to be before that. The position will be March 1st, because you got to advertise for that, so the classification really probably needs to happen
I would say,
effective.
immediately?
Yeah.
Okay,
Because of reclasses.
Yeah.
The other one is not falling under it.
No, the existing position would not fall under that. It would be whoever the new hire is would fall under the new.
okay. Effective immediately. All those in favor say aye. Motion is carried unanimously.
The second request, although not nearly as substantial and almost somewhat humorous/embarrassing, is for $3,000 to purchase some new furniture for the office upstairs, the reception area. The couch, as I joked in the letter, I think the only way to accurately assess the age of that couch would be by way of carbon dating. Miss Allman, again, who has been there for 45 years, says that couch was there in Roger Mooney's office when she started. So it's at least 45 years old. It's probably going on 60 years old, and it looks it.
So it's uncomfortable to sleep on.
It's uncomfortable to sit on. And again, I hate to have to ask, but I think that just from an appearance standpoint, it is very shabby looking, and after 60 years of dedicated service to the county, warrants replacement in my humble opinion, and I would ask if you all would kindly approve $3,000 to update the well-used furniture.
So moved.
Make a motion to approve.
Okay. Been properly moving.
Did you, Bill?
I
I didn't
did.
hear you. I apologize. I'll second it.
Properly moving second to allocate $3,000 from contingency to replace furniture in the.
It's a loose definition of furniture at this
Yeah.
point in time.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
New position, new furniture.
So,
See, there's
Members of the Bay Bridge Monitoring Committee.
Members of the Bay Bridge Monitoring Committee.
You're not moving in, are you?
This is, I didn't know how long the meeting was gonna be.
It won't be that long. I get it.
Peanut butter jelly sandwich and
Gary, good to see you. Mr. Dollinger?
Bill.
Hello.
Bill, always good to see you, bud.
Neighbor.
I don't bite.
Okay. The Bay Bridge Monitoring Committee is we created this committee a few years ago. The idea in mind that at that time, the Maryland Department of Transportation had indicated, and now it's true, looking for an additional, I'll say it this way, the idea was to alleviate some of the traffic flow across the Chesapeake Bay as it currently exists, the transportation. With that said, there have been lots of rumors, innuendos, and ideas of where to locate an additional crossing across the Bay Bridge, which is why this monitoring committee was created, just to keep track of what state and all the stakeholders were doing, not as an advocacy group or anything else, but find out what's going on, because kind of hard to keep track of all the things that's going on from our position. So this is what it is. There are 2, 4, 6 members of the committee currently right now, and you, I think you had something to say about that. 6
We got a
members?
new member, right?
well, we have a new member, Gary DeVito.
Right.
Who's not on the list.
He's not on the list. That'll make 7.
But there is,
We still have expired dates on the website, so I'm presuming that everybody is current and has re-upped.
there
Not
are a couple
necessary.
members that are able to continue, aren't there?
Yes.
Correct.
Yes. So I guess we assume that these are the active, current members that are still on the committee?
Correct.
So we can either add to it or keep this amount, if you, whatever. I think the idea, and I mean, to elaborate or to follow through a little bit on what William said, our idea was, it's been so long since we had everybody together. I know there's at least one gentleman that was supposed to be part of this committee and was actually the chairman, who was, for other reasons, not able to continue on. So we wanted to bring everyone in, just kind of reorganize this monitoring committee and send you on your merry way, really, to keep your eyes and ears open, follow what goes on the state level, and anytime you think it's necessary, to report back to us and tell us what you think's going on. Just keep an eye on things. As William said, not to be an advocacy group at this point in time. I think it's early on, and we certainly don't want to offend anybody, or especially the people that we may have to go to in the future to help with this our position. So it's just to bring everybody together. Been so long since we saw some of you, so we wanted to make sure everybody was still willing to participate. And Gary, thanks for joining the group. And Pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. I don't know if this is enough. You want to replace those couple people or not?
Well, it looks like we have 5. Is neither one of the 2 that are here, not here, not on it anymore? The Fry and Levy?
Robin's here.
Oh, you're Miss Fry? Okay, I didn't hear you last week. Okay, so you're Mr. Sutton, who's So we got a full house. So the only one we're missing is Miss Libby. Is she or?
Okay.
And we have not heard from her, is that correct?
She
Okay.
sent 2 letters and have not heard from her.
Okay.
Well, in my opinion, 5 is adequate. And the whole idea, we realize that things have started to happen here. There's at least a couple of pieces of legislation before the legislature this year dealing with this issue. Of course, the State Highway Administration, I think it's the Highway Administration, not the DOT, right?
MDTA.
Okay.
MDT.
Yeah, they have their little group studying potential bay crossings. We realize that there are some of our sister counties have weighed in as far as what they advocate for, and it's always not in my backyard. It's everywhere. Yes, sir.
The number that we need is going to be predicated on the workload that we're going to have in terms of all of the things that we need to monitor. And if I could, I'd like to present what, you know, that I've been active since October of 2016 on this thing. I would like to present an itemization of those areas to where I think need to be monitored. It's not just the MDTA website, but it's a lot of other things. And if I could ask, if you take one and pass it down, there's quite a bit going on. And when we say that we're early in the stage, the first decision milestone, as presented by the MDTA in their Bay Crossing study, is the fall of this year. That's 8 months away, when they narrow down the number of corridors. Now, we all know that they have 6 sub-areas that they expanded on from the original 4, and they now have 6. And they're going to be narrowing that down to a few corridors. And that decision-making process will happen this coming fall. That's the first decision. And then the next decision after that is the fall of 2019, when they pinpoint where they're going to put it. So they're moving. That's correct.
Because there is an option.
There is a no-build option. Yes, sir, there is. There is a no-build option. That is correct. That is correct. And that we would all know that in the fall of 2019. So all of the things that I've listed there are all of the things that we're currently monitoring on a day-by-day basis, which includes current legislation, anything having to do with the Bay Bridge in terms of legislation. There have been interviews on news radio shows on the Western Shore supporting a Bay Bridge, and then you have the Baltimore Sun saying it should be a no-build option, which was kind of nice for them. There's so much going on in so many different venues that it's really a monumental task to keep up with it on a daily basis. And if we're going to do a complete monitoring job, it's not only monitoring and going to BRAG meetings and everything else, but all of the other things that are going on behind the scenes. The companies that they're recruiting, they've already recruited 2 companies, AECOM to do the traffic study, and a company by the name of RK&K, who are now the project managers for this. And I've asked if they're going to be the NEPA experts in order to dot the I's and cross the T's, and I have not received a reply back on that, other than the fact that MDTA has contracted with another company called RK&K. Excuse me. And if you go to their website, they're quite involved in road and bridge construction and this type of a project. Those are the things that we need to keep track of. Who they're contracting, how much are they paying for it? The fact that 10% of their budget is for a NEPA expert and to defend themselves from a lawsuit. There's a lot of stuff going on. I ask you to review that and see if you think we have enough people.
You've been more familiar with all this than, because I've never seen this committee in 5 years. So I'm assuming, do they have to follow, if they all meet at the same time, do they have to follow Open Meetings Act, like, or what is the onslaught of this?
They meet, when they decide to meet as a group.
But it's not, is it tied to Public Information Act and all that sort of thing?
Oh, it has to be.
Right, it's a
Open
committee
Meeting Act?
that is appointed by you, so yes, that's
So
the
they
trigger.
would have to meet here.
They don't have
They have to meet
They don't
here.
have to meet here, but they have to advertise their meetings. They have to
And
take,
have an
have
agenda
to take
and-
minutes of their meeting.
Right.
Okay.
Just,
And those folks in the paper have to be notified, and
yeah, they have to advertise their meeting and keep minutes of their meeting, allow public to join in if they want to, if they come together. Now, individually, they can do what they want. They can go to meetings, they can take notes. It's only when they meet as a group that they fall under that Open Meetings Act.
so it's really, I guess at this point, you guys figuring out how that's gonna work. Who's gonna delegate what work on here to each other.
Yeah, I don't think today or tonight was the
Right,
time
no, I
that
know.
we
I'm asking
even want
what-
to discuss it. We're just here to bring the group together.
Right.
Thank them for taking on a task like this and make sure they all wanted to participate. And then they can let us know when they got something that we need to talk about.
So all the meetings that are would be advertised, they're gonna have it, that means the minutes of all the meetings, we're privy to all the meetings, whether we go to them or not?
Yes.
And you can-
Whenever you have a group, a quorum, just 3 or more of the 5 of you.
And the minutes officially record actions of the committee, so it's not a transcript of what's been talked about, but when somebody makes a motion and seconded, those are the types of things that will be recorded.
So are we gonna have to be educated on the Open Meetings Act? We're gonna have to have,
Probably
right? We're gonna have to have a representative,
correct.
we're gonna have to be trained on it.
No, not
No?
necessarily.
Are we getting too deep here?
Yes.
There's an online course that you can take in about 2 hours.
I would ask the commissioners to do, to think about this. Since this is a NEPA process, and in order to defend or have an action, a proactive action against a potential Bay Bridge here, there is a no-build option. But somewhere along the line, we either need to have a department, maybe an Amy's department, or somewhere, acquire NEPA expertise. Because that's the rule that they're following. They are,
Our representative anyway for the county government, correct? So, I mean, we already have that expert hired.
so are we NEPA experts, Amy, or do we have the capability to challenge, if necessary, anything in the Tier 1, Tier 2 NEPA process? I'm just suggesting that that's the avenue.
Go that far.
Really?
I really wouldn't.
Okay.
At this point in time, I look at it as just what the name of the committee is, a monitoring committee, to keep an eye on what's going on, pay attention, get the minutes from the state meetings or attend them, watch the progress, watch this thing in progress, and if something important takes place, let us know. Whenever you think we need to know about it. And then if we need to hire experts to do something along down the road, then we'll do it.
Okay. So right now, Amy's going to 2 meetings right now. Should one of us potentially accompany her on our own?
That's
Or
up
is
to
that
you.
That's up to y'all to do.
Okay. All right, cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. And obviously that you don't have a chairman, so you all, the 5 of you will choose that person, or however you want to. You set up your own committee the way you want it to operate, and hopefully we will never hear back from you. But if something important shows up, then we certainly look forward to hearing
That's
from
right.
you.
Expect you'll be hearing.
All right.
Yeah, yeah.
I do. You can make arrangements to do that again if you'd like. Call the office and they'll help you set up a meeting spot.
And we can also put it on our website as well, and that counts for your advertisement.
That does count as the advertisement.
I would not recommend holding your meetings in Bluebird.
See you, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you. Contact.
Okay. I saw him. Oh, there you are. Scott Boone, our Director of Information Technology.
Hey, Scott, how are you?
Sir. That's all right.
Okay, so, I used to come here frequently and give updates on the fiber project, and I know there's been a lot of curiosity as to why there has been a lot of talk about it lately. Really, to sum it up, it was because the public-private partnership on the private side, there was a reorganization process that was going on, and during that process, there was bought out the dark fiber from our previous partner, and we also were able to obtain multiple bundles of the fiber. So fiber, 2 bundles to be precise. The dark fiber provider that has joined us is an LLC. These investors, they call themselves Kent Fiber Optic Systems. Their website is kentfos.com. You can learn all about them there. You can see they put quite a bit of information on here. What they really want us to focus on is that they are focused solely on Kent County. Unlike the previous project where we were part of something that was going to spread all over the place, they are focused solely 100% on the economic development efforts of Kent County. They see dark fiber as a very valuable acquisition. That's why they came in and jumped on it. Information about their team is out there. Lots of experience in the past. They've even have their own, really what's kind of a little bit of a flavor of economic development on a page just about Kent County. They are already currently marketing the county. They have developers that are already engaged. They will be here next month to come and look at Kent County, some of the available commercial property. They're pretty good at what they do. And their sole focus, they are not looking at any other county. They are looking at Kent County, period. So one other thing that we were able to do is, and you can see they're on our website as well, so if you need their contact information, it's right there. Progress reports, this really kind of went dark for a while because we kind of had to step. Sorry? Contact?
You need a disclaimer on there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's not an ownership of the county.
Yeah, I think you're correct. I think when it was the previous setup, I think we had it on there as that they were the dark fiber open access provider and not associated directly with us or something like that. I'll have to get Jason to correct that, but we can do that, sure. Progress reports, it will continue to be updated. We brought Millington Pool online, which I'll discuss here shortly. That's a new community access area. We went from 54 anchor sites. We'll now have 66. So once again, we went from leasing to owning. We are paying, what we were able to do is we were able to take the money that we would have paid in 10 years of maintenance and acquire network. So what we were already on the hook for contractually, what we were already obligated to pay, we were able to flip that and gain ownership of this fiber. In the process of doing that, I think Commissioner Fithian, you asked the best question of all when we were talking about this earlier. You said, if you could go back and do something different, what would you do? And that started the discussion about ownership. But also was to really look at the fiber or the anchor sites. When we put that list of 54 out there, we really didn't think anybody was going to come back and say, we'll give you 100% of them. The next bid, I think, was 35 or something like that. So we looked at some and we said, well, there may be a lateral that costs $36,000 to go to one station where one employee might be there for 2 or 3 hours a day. We had the opportunity to really reset the project, go back and say, what can we do for the citizens and build out to other areas where previously we were not going to connect. Let's see if I've got this up here. Okay, so just a bit of a history. When we started back in 2007, those were the connected anchor sites in Kent County. And it was running over copper. It was 1.5 megabits. The whole megabit gigabit thing, we have 1,000 megs. As the project was being researched, we identified where there were assets that would be open access. That was pretty much of the high capacity open access fiber. That was the Maryland Broadband Co-op's footprint in Kent County. As Network Maryland came and built, they promised us that right there and Morganneck. So that and a few sites in Chestertown was really all that was going to be hooked up. Dan McLeod and I went over to Annapolis and talked to their folks over there and said, well, the Board of Education's out here in Rock Hall, and the only high school we have is in Wharton. And so they agreed to transfer funds from other projects, and they gave us this. Okay, but the problem with this was it was closed. You know, it has been a closed network. We've gone, before we did our project and really kind of kicked the hornet's nest there a little bit, I went all the way to NTIA and said, you know, how do we open this up? You know, because, you know, we have this broadband expansion project. You know, it would be great if we could start off of this. And every time we were told no. Well, coincidentally, okay, since we've done this project, the governor has coincidentally approved a rural broadband research committee, and coincidentally, one of the ideas is what we thought of back in 2013, which is maybe you should open the fiber up. So those ideas are old, but they may be actionable now because of what you guys did and kind of the pressure I think it's putting on some of the other counties. We also engaged in with an incumbent provider to get the only school at that time, Millington Elementary School, which did not have connectivity back to the main network. That was a one-time construction payment, and so that was really what we had to work with. This part right here, this blue part, we could not sublease that. We could not open it up. Okay, it was the incumbent provider really had control over that. And like I said, the red lines there were red for a reason because they were closed until possibly recently. Maybe they will start opening up. So when we're done, this is what it will look like in Kent County. Again, we went from this to this. And this includes all 66, I think I got them right, all 66 anchor sites, including the new ones that we're going to bring on there. Of the new ones, you're going to see some really neat things. Everywhere I put in this sort of like rose color is going to be a community access area. We're going to light Betterton Beach up, the parks. We're going into Wharton now, areas where we did not target before. We're going to do Wharton Park out there by the concession stand. The community center was always a community access center. Out in Millington, this was done today. And there you go. This is them actually doing the work today.
And Scott, that means open access to people trying to log on to, instead of having to use 4G, they can log into a government or county thing and get the fiber.
It does a lot of things. I mean, it's, you know, hopefully it'll drive some usage of the pool up. You know, you get maybe some parents that can go out there, take their tablets out, you know, while they're sitting there, let the kids, you know, swim. There's areas to run around out there. I mean, if you're a kid on a bike and you're living out here in Millington and, you know, you basically have what, you know, the library in town and you have the community center, that's a long bike ride, right? But, you know, a bike ride out here, maybe sit there at the picnic tables, you know, when the pool's open. It's just, it's another way we can try and get access to the students closer to their homes. Okay, so those were additions. Down over here, the fairgrounds. That's on me. I don't know why I left it off, but we now have it. It's only 0.3 of a mile off the main fiber. That's a new site. We'll be able to light it up when we have the fair. The thing about, you know, people will be able to jump on with their little you know, zip-in credit cards for different things. You know, when you have that access to the internet to make your sales. I mean, even the concession stand out there in Wharton. You know, that's a new feature that we can. So, and some of these are strategic. They're things we're looking at for the future. That's why we added them on. Rock Hall, I'm really excited about these two things. I mean, the beach, we're hoping that it'll, you know, maybe increase some traffic out there, just like in Betterton. But another one that's on me that I left off was the Rock Hall Civic Center, and I think, you know, Commissioner Fithian, you know what those uses are. I mean, that's all education. I mean, they do tutoring, adult education, and it's another place that people can go if they can't afford it. You know, it's not that far to ride your bike or have your parents drop you off or something like that. So we have multiple locations now, including the library. And there's a library branch here as well. So, I mean, Rock Hall has 3 right there. So, yeah, we're real happy about it. You know, anytime you can walk away from a project where, you know, you hit a big speed bump, you end up with ownership instead of leasing, increasing your anchor sites and increasing services to the citizens, that's a pretty good deal. And now, over the course of 30 years, what would have cost us, was it 6.6 million, we just carved off millions of dollars off of that. So after that 10-year period, we don't pay, I mean, there's nothing. You know, and before we were looking in perpetuity of paying a large chunk of money on a maintenance per year Now we own it for basically what will be about a third of what we would have been paying over 30 years. So that's where we are, and if you want to see what's left out of this massive project, it is that. That's all that's left. So that money that was meant to do that construction is sitting there in Tom's, I guess. Shelley, does Tom have control over that? I don't know who has control over it. But anyway, so it's all flowing through there. There was a delivery today out here in Rock Hall for the first conduit roll. So that's sitting out there by the park. And you should see KCI rolling out there all this week. They're working downtown here, and this is an up-to-date map as well. This is really what downtown Chestertown will look like. So for a lot of people that were worried about, is it ever going to get here? Well, there it is. And these are all the different segments broken up and how they're going to get there. I think they were working on this segment right here today, or they're going to be working on it soon. So that's really what we got for you. We're excited to get the trucks rolling again. We're going to complete it, and it's going to be better than what we set out to do to begin with. But we had to pause and let the private side really renegotiate and kind of find their way out of it. So, and I'll be back every week, unfortunately.
Very good.
Excellent.
Good work.
Well, I mean, honestly, that meeting that we had, that was...
You're monitoring the project, and you do a great job with that.
Well, and I tell you, Shelley really stepped up with Tom as well, and what they've got set up here to really see this thing across the finish line, there's a lot of eyes on it now.
So how much actual mileage is left? 4 point?
No, it's like maybe 10 a little over 10 miles maybe. I could probably go on here and map it for you, but when you consider over 14 months we did close to 100 miles. The hardest part is this part right here. Chestertown is going to be the hardest part. You're going to drop a blade in the ground and go, this segment will go probably much more quickly than downtown Chestertown. That's just the nature of the beast. But now there's hope.
A lot less stuff in the way of going out.
Exactly. And this is already all marked. I mean, all the permits are done. It's all ready to go, and all the materials just sitting there waiting to be put in.
Did they actually work it out? I see your Chestertown map. Did they actually work it out to do that knifing? What's it called, micro trenching? No,
they're not going to micro trench. He's identified. That's why it's taking these paths now. They've identified ways that they can actually go underground. So they've worked through that as well.
Okay.
Now there's going to be some areas here where we may still have to deal with some pole issues. We're trying to figure out this blue segment will probably be the very last. These number of blocks will probably be the last thing constructed.
Is that the railroad track?
No, that's this is actually High Street, right? Yeah. So so it's on High Street. The tracks are,
Okay.
They weren't able to get that because I guess the state still has ownership of that and it's their easement and so forth. But they feel pretty positive and they've got it all teed up and ready to go to finish this thing.
Nice.
Okay.
Very good, Scott.
Any questions? Right.
So as far as in relationship to the original timeline, where are we?
So the original timeline was supposed to be the end of October 2017. Clearly we're not there, right? And that was due to the acquisition process of the dark fiber and this new group that came in. Really what we should clarify for people is, I've said it over and over and over again, and I just can't seem to hit the mark. Our relationship is with the dark fiber provider, okay? Everybody's very concerned about their homes and businesses. I get that, but that's the lit market, okay? That's the last mile. We do not have a direct relationship with them. I mean, boy, the stuff you see flying around there on the internet about they're breaching our contract and all that kind of, there was never a contract with Think Big, ever.
Oh.
Never, right? In fact, and anybody who wants to criticize that, there was not a single proposal that came in that offered that. Not one. Not even the runner-up, not number 3, not number 4. No one offered in those proposals, certainly within a budget that we found reasonable, a way to get to the home. They're promising, and they're still promising that they're going to do it. Now, did they overpromise maybe on the timeline? Sure. But if you look on the original rollout, it says availability 2017. That meant our backbone had to be done by 2017. So if you're waiting for them in Rock Hall, it's our fault. It's not their fault. It's our fault,
Is there an estimated timeline for the completion of the segments that you just showed us?
Weather permitting, they're hoping within the next like 2 to 3 months. So, and we'll see about downtown Chestertown and all those different avenues they're taking, but that's what they're hoping for.
But in the meantime, while they're waiting for the last segment to be done, they're hooking up homes all through the county and all the rest of it. I mean, they're not waiting for us for it all to be done before we start. I mean, there's people being hooked up every day.
You're asking me to talk about that third layer, but yeah, from what we hear, they're still up in Kentmore Park and they're still hooking people up. Little places here and there. I would imagine there was probably a pause on their side as well while they waited to see how this whole thing shook out. But I would also imagine you see a little bit more activity here shortly.
I know I've had conversations with people who have been hooked up, and they're just like ecstatic.
Yes, sir.
Well, and I know that's what everybody's waiting for. But one other thing I want to put, because there's a lot of misinformation that's out there, right?
Yes.
A lot of other misinformation is out there, about why we didn't go with the co-op or Atlantic Broadband or somebody like that. You tell me if you remember, but I don't think one single incumbent, not one, showed up to the mandatory pre-bid meeting. Not one. And there was over $5 million on the table, and no one showed up.
Well, people showed up, but they didn't.
Sorry, yeah, people were there. It was actually a pretty full room, but we had people as far away as South Dakota, New Jersey, and one other place.
There's 8. If I remember correctly, there's 7 or 8 that actually submitted.
That submitted, but we had inquiries from as far away as South Dakota about participating in this construction. So,
It is, never was the intent, this whole project, to ensure every homeowner or every facility in the county be hooked up to internet. The whole purpose was to provide internet access to governmental entities and as a subset to ensure that a commercial provider, and we have several here in the county, Think Big is only one of them, can provide, we reduce the barriers of entry to our county. Laying the fiber backbone is very capital intensive. So we've lowered the barrier, so to speak, and we're not a Ford F-150. So our barriers are concerned.
I'm actually glad you brought that up because this is something we're working on. This is a very rough draft for the hypercritical. This is not the final draft, but we looked at an economic development group in Mississippi, and they did a really good job of showing off. Okay, so we're going to create this interactive map, that's going to focus on Kent County. And one of the things it does is we want to let people know when we hook them with a Facebook campaign or they find our page or fiber optics, and they say, okay, where's this place? Where's Kent County? We want to show them not only where we are, but distance-wise, where we're related to, Baltimore, D.C., some of the major markets. You can see, are there major seaports around, and we'll have call-outs for all this. But we really want to spoon-feed it and put it right under their faces. So if you're a site selector, airports, are there regional airports? Yes. We're going to have all those out there for these guys to see. Is there a railroad available? Yes. There'll be a call-out to what does that railroad do for me, if I'm looking for shipping. And then, of course, show them what we've got. So not only can we tell them all of those things, but we've got the infrastructure to support you. We have 2 power companies in Kent County, so you have diverse power companies. You have a massive amount of fiber. You have access to a railroad that really ultimately connects back to the national grid. And look how close we are to all these major markets.
And because of the dark fiber and the new owner of that fiber as well, all the providers, the secondary providers such as Think Big, Delmarva Wi-Fi, Cambio, whoever they are, can have access to this by leasing fiber that is already there.
Yes.
They can lease, do that last mile stretch, which they never would have been able to do prior to that. Correct?
It's like you said, it's capital intensive, so this makes it a lease rather than out of pocket. Yeah, I mean, trust me, those guys, the only way they make money is if somebody leases fibers from them. So I mean, it is an open access one. If you want to call them, that's their job. Our job, the county government's job, is to provide services to every single public school in the county, police station, firehouse, town hall, community center, anything we can get to and start offering services. If they want to start jumping on our licensing, because it's going to be easier for them to do that, right, to be part of a larger group, We're all connected now. Every one of us. If you want to talk about disaster, a disaster situation, throwing some, video polycom phones in at every, say, fire hall in the county, you can have a visual representation of everybody from their home location into an emergency operations center. Okay, that high capacity, that's what we care about. I mean, that's our portion of this project, was providing those kind of services to those anchor institutions. So,
Good job.
okay.
Thank you.
I don't know why you're here. Amy Mort, our Director of Planning, Housing, Zoning, and something else was in there. That's it? That's it? Okay.
What else?
And NEPA.
Yeah.
Yes, I might as well add that to the list. It'll be a fun staff member to welcome aboard. Trying to bring this down. Okay, I've been in for specific projects of late, but I haven't given you a departmental update in a while. So I don't want to read down a bulleted list, but I want to hit some of the high points that staff has been working on. In terms of recent project approvals and reviews, in December, there were 3 more agricultural preservation districts that have been reviewed favorably and sent to you for approval. CFF, Creophil Fibers Corporation, received a preliminary site plan approval in December for an expansion. Shipping and receiving warehouses are being expanded. Brickyard Landing, the Gillespie site on Morganac Road, they received final site plan approval for a new office and for expanded storage area. That approval was granted in November. The Massey Airport has also expanded. They worked with an airport, a small airport in Salisbury, and inherited a very large and nice hangar. But they needed a site plan to put that hangar onto their site. And they also amended some of their early 2002, I think, 2001 special exception conditions to give them some more flexibility. They have a lot of use out there. In addition, there was a setback variance on Hillmont Drive for an expanded deck that was approved for safety reasons because a house was built that was meant to have windows, but instead sliding doors were installed, and there was no safe deck coming out of the front of the house, so the sliding doors had to be barred. So this allowed that property owner to build a deck for safe egress and ingress to the house. After the text amendment for safe harbor for this for tall ships, our Sultana received its special exception per they're championing that text amendment. In October, the Board of Appeals granted that safe harbor approval for a location in Langford Creek, and the town of Chestertown completed their annexation. So those are some recent of their wastewater treatment plant out along off of Quaker Neck Road. So those are some things that have been going on in the last couple of months. On the upcoming Planning Commission agenda are a few text amendments. One meant specifically to provide some business flexibility on our Crossroads Commercial District, and that was precipitated by this board to look at allowing food processing and canning in the Crossroads Commercial District. Currently, that is not a permitted use, though that is a permitted use in our industrial areas and in our commercial area as a special exception. So we're putting forward a text amendment for special exception use. This use is a little more intense than some of the other permitted uses in a Crossroads Commercial, and our Crossroads commercial districts are located adjacent to villages. So it's a more intense use than is permitted in the village district because of the Crossroads Commercial's orientation to major roadways. But this use is consistent with some more intense uses in that district and other comparable districts. So we're looking to really, there is a specific business that is a local business looking to expand that would benefit but we have been hearing a lot about the limited flexibility in some of our commercial districts to allow for business expansion. So this is looking to address that public need. We're also addressing the public need of our Board of Education and their bus parking conundrum, because our ordinance does not allow for specifically bus parking in the Village District, which is where really the Board of Ed wants to focus to park their buses, because the Wharton area where they do want to park is in the Village District. We're also looking at some bus parking flexibility in the Commercial District as well, because we know that there are people out there. We know we have some violations out there in terms of how buses are currently being parked, and our provisions relative to bus parking right now are accessory, so that subcontractors may park between 2 and 5 buses, depending on the acreage that they have, as an accessory use. And this would allow for this evolution in what the Board of Ed seems to need and what the market seems to need right now. So the Planning Commission will hear both of those text amendments in February. They're also looking at an amendment that you saw a few months ago in May, when there were about 9 agricultural preservation districts, and what we realized in reviewing that number of districts, and a few of them fell short of the county code standards for agricultural preservation, simply creating the districts. There was a conflict between the way the county looks at those districts and the way that Mouth looks at the districts. The Planning Commission suggested that the county code change in this regard to be consistent with the state standard. That standard would be a little different than the state standard, in that just because a property is enrolled in a district doesn't mean that they meet the standards for preservation, but allowing that flexibility to place a property in a district whether or not they meet the state standard is the goal of the goal of the code amendment. So the Planning Commission will review that, and they're also reviewing an after-the-fact buffer variance for the construction of a deck in the buffer without obtaining a permit. A fine was assessed and paid in that case, and an after-the-fact building permit has been applied for, and a buffer mitigation plan has been submitted, all in accordance with our statute. And the applicant is trying to get an after-the-fact variance in this case, which is a part of the process. So the Board of Appeals will ultimately decide that case. I bring up violations because we have several of them that are in varying degrees of review. I know that the Bayshore campground was a matter of discussion at last week's meeting. And just to update you on that case, the county did file for declaratory action in that case, and also included in that declaratory action, which is specific to the issue of non-conforming use on that property. There are also some zoning violations that have yet to be resolved. So the natural course is that those violations, when they are contested by the property owner, end up in court anyway. So to fast track that review, since we were already taking an aspect of that property use before the circuit court, we added the zoning violations to that case. The judge requested a pre-trial statement that was to have been submitted by the 16th of January, and planning attorney Mitch Mao submitted that statement on the 11th of January. There is no hearing schedule set at this time. I think the judge was looking for consideration of a lot of facts to put forward a schedule. So as soon as we have one, I'll let you know. An interesting evolution of use has been occurring over the last several years, and now we have 4 open cases. So I thought I'd share that with you, because it will be our interpretation will be tested by the Board of Appeals soon. It has become a trend for companies to sell trailers, abandoned tractor trailers and cargo trailers for use as an accessory use on a property as a storage, as a shed, a storage unit. These structures don't meet our definition of structure because they are considered to be vehicles under the Motor Vehicle Administration because they are licensed as a type of a vehicle. They are licensed and registered. So we have traditionally treated trailers, tractor trailer trailers, and now cargo trailers, that's new. We have treated them as zoning violations unless they are a part of a commercial operation. Property owners are allowed to park one commercial vehicle if it is licensed to them on their property. This isn't what this is. This isn't a tractor trailer driver who parks his vehicle at his house. These are basically being used as storage sheds.
Does that even go for farmers?
Yes, I mean, if there's a cargo trailer, it's a cargo trailer versus an ag building. So there's that differentiation of use and what that structure is. Is it a vehicle or is it a structure? We have 3 open cases, one in Chesterville. That property owner is complying and is removing the structures and is otherwise cleaning up the property. There's a case in Still Pond that we've been working on. There's a new case in Betterton and a case in Fairleigh. Our open case in Fairleigh deals with a cargo trailer. And that property owner has sought legal counsel and applied for an after-the-fact building permit. It started as a violation. We opened a case, and in pursuing compliance, the property owner is arguing to keep the cargo unit. So that property owner has applied for a building permit, which I've denied in accordance with the statute that I've just explained, and the applicant and her attorney they're going to appeal the decision to the Board of Appeals. So our Board of Appeals is going to be looking at this use and will make a decision as to whether or not the way our department and the way I've been interpreting the ordinance is consistent with the land use ordinance. So I'll report back on how that goes. Otherwise, we have been coordinating on a lot of efforts. I'm working with the Center for Agroecology. They're going to host a local workshop here on Thursday at the community center that is designed to help local jurisdictions who are interested in learning more about grant opportunities relative to water quality improvements. So we're co-hosting this workshop as an arm of the Kent County TMDL committee and as a way of trying to get more collaboration and coordination on WIP implementation. We're also working with the Parks and Rec and Public Works on new signage for the parks, with water and wastewater to try to finalize the Georgetown Yacht Basin Pump Station site. We're still working on that site plan and finalizing all of the required lease agreements. The Cackaway Farm Cooperative, which you haven't heard about in a while, and that is due to the fact that the attorneys are arguing details of that shared facilities agreement. We hope to gain some ground on that soon. And also, I've been working with Jim Wright, who has taken on the update to the water and sewer plan, so you should be seeing that within the next couple of months. Also, working, Stephanie Jones has been working directly with the town of Betterton and the Rigby Bluff Association on a buffer enhancement plan. For 15 or so years that I've been around, and for a lot longer, that bluff in front of Rigby has been a constant source of contention. And we are going in there and removing all of the invasive species and putting back more desirable vegetation. So hopefully we'll have a habitat enhancement, sediment control enhancement, water quality, and make the residents of Betterton a lot happier with the appearance of that bank.
It'd been a lot easier if they'd have bought the bluff.
They still have the critical area program to contend with. So we're able to go in there and help them to meet those requirements, and also to use some of our critical area afforestation funding, which we collect from property owners when they don't have room to replant trees on their properties because they have wooded lots. That money has to be dedicated to public lands. So it's hard to find opportunities in the critical area on public land to implement that funding. So we're happy to have this project. It's hitting all the right boxes. Also, I've been busy with St. Paul's Church, who's received phase 2 of their stream restoration grant. You'll be seeing that at your next meeting, so that to sign the grant that you agreed that we would act as a pass-through agent. It's time, they've been awarded the grant, and it's time to sign all the paperwork and get that project started. We have a group meeting with them this Friday to look at the mechanics of the grant, the budget, the timelines for submittals, and the contracts that they need to obtain and the quotes that they need to obtain to get a design in place.
The first phase of that was complete,
Yes.
and money's been taken care of. I mean,
Yes.
it's all paid for, everything. Now we're into phase 2.
Yes.
Is that a larger phase than phase 1?
It is. Phase 1 was very small. It was a very small grant that was received from the Department of Natural Resources that also passed through the county.
It was about, about 70,000 or something?
No, this grant this one is $78,000, and this is for design of the larger stream area where there is serious erosion and a fear of that impact of the erosion on the cemetery that is adjacent to the waterway. There was a ravine that is further upstream that has been eroding, and that project has been completed, and that was a smaller project, and I think it was $16,000 or $18,000. It wasn't a huge. The first one, phase 1. Now phase 3 will be a much larger project, because that will be implementation of the design in phase 2. And then finally, we've been working a lot with MDOT and the Department of Transportation. We're participating, Jim Wright and I are participating in a conference call tomorrow on the Chapter 30 program requirements, which is the state's program for categorizing very large-scale projects, $5 million projects and over. We want to make sure that we're aware of the project parameters because there is one project that could be on our radar other than the Bay Crossing, and that is the Chestertown Boulevard funding. If that project should be completed, we want to know what would be required, and we'll also coordinate with the town of Chestertown. And the Bay Crossing study, I also wanted to report on that, and just to note, and I would have popped up while the members were here, I mean, I will assist that the local committee in scheduling meetings and gathering information and sharing information, and also getting notice out to all interested members of the community, of which there are many. And I think we're going to want to reach out to as many interested residents as possible because Mike Wall is correct. It's very complicated. There are a lot of moving parts, and having as many people involved listening and watching and catching meetings and reporting on meetings will be helpful in the long, which it will be a long haul, I think.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Marty Hale, Director of Human Resources.
Thank you. Good evening. I have two quick items, and then I think I just want to give you a brief update of departmental updates, since I don't usually get on the agenda for that, but I have a couple of things to mention. So I believe first up is request to hire 2 tumbling instructors for the Parks and Rec Department. These aren't my readers. I can barely see this.
You need-
Yes, please. I have my distance ones, but not my. Okay. The Parks and Rec Department offers an 8-week program for tumbling and movement on Saturday mornings in the winter for children ages 2 to 9, and they hire an instructor, an assistant instructor. January 3rd and 8th, 2018, 2 applicants were interviewed by Jill Coleman and our new Recreation Program Coordinator, Taylor Huffman. Based upon the applications, they're recommending the 2 individuals that are listed on the sheet at the rates listed as well.
So moved.
Second.
Project moving second to hire individuals, one as an instructor and one as an assistant position for the tumbling movement program at Parks and Recreation Department, pending successful completion of county pre-employment requirements. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you. And next up is a request to hire MEO1, a vacant MEO1 in the Public Works Department in the County Roads Division at the rate listed. The vacancy was due to a resignation. The position was advertised internally and externally for 2 weeks, resulting in 6 applications. 3 of them met the minimum requirements and were interviewed by myself, Daniel Bitter, Lee Layton, and Al Hammer on January 9th. Based upon the interviews, we recommended the individual to be hired as, again, at the rate listed, and we also provided a second choice as well.
So moved.
Second.
Party moving second to hire the recommended individual to fill the vacant MEO position in Public Works, Roads Department, pending successful completion of county pre-employment requirements. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, and by way of a departmental update, I have a couple of things just to talk about real quick. Today, we began our 3rd weight loss challenge for the county. I didn't participate in the second one, but the first one I have some stats on, and if you remember the very first one, we had 44 participants. Those participants lost 536 pounds, and then we award a prize to the male and female, so it's men against men, women against women, because, as I mentioned, I've been told that men lose weight quicker than women, and so we felt that that's, I guess, the standing information there. Voted on by the employees. This time, we've allowed spouses or significant others to participate as well. While we want to keep the prizes with the employees, they're participating as one individual. So the weight loss between the 2 will be averaged over, the combined weight and weight loss to participate.
They do it?
Yeah, and then they would split the prize if a team is successful. We've had 2 teams sign up and 1 husband and wife county employees that are participating separately. So I think somebody figured out that if one doesn't participate in the team, it's a drag on the other one. So, and the purpose really is, to have that support at home. It's easier, like if you're making food for both of you, than a separate meal and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, we're looking for some good results there. I mean, 536 pounds was a huge amount for 44 people to lose. They did win good prizes, so there was a lot of camaraderie and everything. We enjoyed it. So I think we're about 20 strong, and today's the very first day.
Cool.
So we've had 20 people sign up.
Very good.
So that's good results. Now, if we can keep the momentum going through the week, maybe we'll hit 40 or 44 again. Next, we had our annual review of the insurance policy with Benecon, our TPA, and also Cigna, our healthcare provider. I'm sure you're aware, but we are, when we went into last year, which was our 6th year, we were expecting to come in about $180,000 under what they anticipated. We actually came in at $443,000. So we had, again, continued to have good results with the insurance. We should be getting that check sometime this week. For some reason, while they've presented it to you in the past, a lot of times it comes to our office and we very quickly take it across the hall to finance. So, and that brings us to a grand total in the 6 years of $2.1 million. So we're just shy in 6 years of getting one entire year of insurance free for our employees and their families. So that plan has turned out really well. I will say this year that they suggested that we put some of that in reserve because statistically we're going to hit a bad year at some point in time. And it seems to be in the 5 to 7 year range, and we're in year 7. So, but on the good side, the employees. What's that? Well, hopefully. I mean, we remain the poster child for the Maryland Health Cooperative in that fashion, and the longer we can go with the employees utilizing the insurance, which is half the battle. I mean, if you're having your annual physicals and having your blood pressure checked and everything, you tend to be in better health, and that, again, keeps us in a good situation with what we're paying. So, okay. And lastly, you probably heard the legislature overturned the veto for the sick leave legislation. So we began preliminary investigation of that, which is supposed to be enacted within 30 days. So we started looking at it. There's a lot of nuances to it. However, it looks like our payroll system really, we turn on accruals or turn them off. There's a lot of moving parts to this, and it looks like we're going to have to manually calculate every pay period who gets an accrual, and because we can't turn it on and we can't turn it on and off for each individual, because we have to look at whether they work 24 hours in the pay period, whether they're going to be employed for 106 days. If they're going to be reemployed in 37 weeks, then you have to give them the accrual back. They only get 40 hours a year, but a maximum carryover of 64 hours. So there's a lot of moving parts. So at the point we were discussing it, the payroll manager chose to leave the office, which coincided with the end of the day, which was fine with us. So she says, well, I'm leaving now. And so anyway, we'll continue those conversations, but we'll be looking at how that shakes out, and whether it's going to go into effect in 30 days, and then we would need to apply that to the employees, mainly the seasonal or non-permanent part-time employees. So.
Okay.
All right, that's all I have. And you got your glasses back? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Shelley?
Okay, I have a few things for you this evening. The first is I'd like to revisit, you had tabled a decision for mileage for the consultant last week, at last week's meeting. So I was wondering if you're ready to take a vote on that.
You were supposed to investigate something?
Yes, the insurance company does not encourage take-home cars for contractors. They say that if a contractor may be a permissive user of a vehicle, if there are very specific permissive terms. The contractor can do this with this car on these dates. And when you get into the situation where a contractor is taking a car home, it's very hard to pin down exactly what those terms are.
Well, I have no issue with paid mileage during the work hours that has been specified for that contractor to work. I still have a big problem paying a contractor from his home to our facilities when he's paid by the hour and a rate. So that's my opinion on this. But the gentleman, take the floor.
But when he gets to the job, he's got a car provided
Yes,
by
and that's
us.
a very permissive use. That's easily identified at the front.
That's okay.
That's okay. It is.
Okay. Second thing, and we didn't have time to put it on the agenda, SB 173, and this is a local initiative, Senate Bill 173. It is going to hearing next Thursday. And this is the authority to give you the authority to determine what the orphans court judges will be paid. Right now, it's in statute, it's in annotated code what Kent County judges will make. A lot of other counties have it, the wording such that the county commissioners can set the rate. So if you want to reset it at a specific amount right now, you have to go to the legislature to get them to amend it. So every time you want to amend it, it would be that process.
But if this legislation was to pass, we would be able to, or whoever the commissioners are, could raise it anytime they saw fit.
Absolutely.
It gives us the authority to raise it instead of us having to go to Annapolis every time.
Right.
Because I can't remember, I've been here over a span of 24 years, I don't remember having an increase. Maybe I'm wrong. I might have missed that, but I don't.
Where it is, I doubt it's been raised in 24 years.
$4,000 a year or something. Yeah.
So, okay, so the letter of support is there for your signature.
Let's be done. I want to backtrack. Was that a decision to pay the mileage, or I kind of lost track?
No, what you said.
Okay, so
Support what you said.
And then on the agenda,
He's gonna have
A car on duty.
transportation when he gets here, but it's
Right.
his responsibility to get to work.
okay.
on the agenda, there is the state aid for police protection. This is an annual report that is filled out for the grant, the Governor's Office for Crime Control Prevention. And what is included in your packet is the actual expenditures for FY17, which is part of the terms of the grant to be submitted.
So you need to vote to accept the grant, or
To approve the report as submitted.
motion to approve the expenditure report as submitted.
And I'll second it.
Parker moving second to approve the state aid for police protection FY17 expenditure report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion's carried unanimously.
And I have one report out, and that is on December 19th, 2017, you had approved a bidder for the Nicholson landfill gas flare system at $43,500. Aptum Environmental and Infrastructure Incorporated was the successful bidder, and the contract was signed.
Okay.
Right.
That's all I have.
All right. You have comments you want to make?
It was a good morning yesterday morning at the Martin Luther King breakfast. Well attended, full house.
I think that was probably the largest crowd. I think that was the biggest crowd I've ever seen there.
Oh, shucks. Anything from the news media? This is the fiber?
We had a lease over 10 years, for 10 years, and instead of paying that lease, fiber was bought out, so we have ownership and we don't pay that lease anymore.
Our total cost expenditure is less.
Went down.
No, it was bought out by us,
By
not
us.
another company.
So now, instead of leasing those
What
two
we-
bundles of fiber,
We own
Kent County owns the two bundles of fiber. So it was roughly $200,000 per year that we would be paying in maintenance fees for the lease, and now we do not have those maintenance fees. And those fees potentially could have lasted in perpetuity.
Okay. Anything else? Yes, sir?
I hope you guys have a great press release coming out about this. I mean, this is signs about how you did it and all that. This is, we could not pass many.
I agree with you.
You guys crazy.
You are stretching it a little.
Yeah,
bit now.
yeah. The only thing I can say is the stars align at the right time for this to make this work.
They always said you'd rather be lucky than good anytime.
That's right.
I'm good.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We are adjourned. And have a good evening. Be careful, because it's going to snow.
Oh, it's not much.
Eventually.
Yeah,
Eventually.
I might freeze over eventually.
It's true.
It's global warming thing.
No such thing.
What, global warming or hell freezing over?